everyone, welcome back to Biophilia, your all-time study mate. Today we are going to continue with the part 4 of organism and population. If you like our videos and get some help, then don't forget to like, share and subscribe to our amazing channel Biophilia. So let's start with the understanding about populations. So populations जो होते हैं, these are nothing but group of organisms of one species. Very important, these will be of one species and they will be sharing the same geographical area, and they will also compete for similar resources. They will be potential of interbreeding and will be associated with some sort of other groups as well. So हो सकता है एक community, एक population होगा for humans. So humans is one species. One population will be of cats. One population might be for lions. One population for eagles or birds. Different. So all these are going to be of one species, but they will also be interrelated to each other. For example, lions population is going to be somewhere related to the deer's population somewhere related to the plant population. So likewise there might be some or other kinds of interference with the other populations as well. So population के क्या examples हो सकते हैं? You can have the good examples from the NCERT book, which is going to include the cormorants in the wetlands. There are going to be rats in abundant dwelling. So these are all single species which are going to form populations. एक टेरिटरी में टीक वुड्स ग्रो किए हुए हैं, तो ऑल दैट इज गोइंग टू बी अ टीक वुड पॉपुलेशन. On a culture plate, all the bacteria are going to form one population. So these are some examples of the population, and it is important to study in ecology because once you are going to understand about the population ecology, you are going to link it to ecology, that is one field of science, and the second one, that is population genetics and evolution. So जब genetic evolution of ecology एक साथ आके once you are going to study their relationships all together, you are indirectly studying about population ecology. So what are the population attributes? So attributes यानी कुछ ऐसी चीज़ें होती है और there are certain terms that only population can help to define it. एक सिंगल इंडिविजुअल उस चीज़ को नहीं डिस्क्राइब कर सकता है. सो सच एट्रीब्यूट्स और सच definitions that only population can make it true are these, that is birth and death rates, second is sex ratio, third is population age, and last is population density. So let's understand one by one in detail so that you will understand that why these values are not being showed by an individual, only by a population. So the first one we see is birth and death rates. So birth and death rates जो होते हैं, these are going to be the rates that are going to be expressed in change in numbers. So either there might be a increase or there might be a decrease in the changes. So हो सकता है that whatever, for example, a population of lotus in a pond. So here you can see images. So this image over here is going to show you that previously that the lotus population in the pond used to be some x number. For example, here you can count it out and try to understand how many lotuses were there. So यहाँ पे 1 2 3 4 5 and 6 lotuses were there at some time period t. Right, time period t पे 6 lotuses were present, and say this was your year 1. Okay, the first year. एक साल ख़त्म होने के बाद you had some change in the lotus population. So now you are going to have how many lotuses? You are going to have 10 lotuses, right? So after time t plus 1 यानी एक कुछ time period consume होने के बाद we are taking it as 1 year. So after 1 year, now the population of lotuses is pond is 10. So if now here you can understand, यहाँ पे हम एक individual lotus flower की बात नहीं कर रहे हैं. We are studying about the entire population in the pond. So this pond we are calculating or we are counting each and every individual, that is we are considering the population. So whenever you are understanding about birth or death rates, you only speak about population, you don't speak about a single individual. So that is the reason we say that this birth rate or death rate can now be calculated as if you are calculating about birth rates. So birth rate को आप कैसे calculate करोगे? You will be calculating whatever is the change in the whatever is change upon the time that you had taken. So what is the change over here? We have seen that previously that it was 6, now it is 10. So change to hoga, that is going to be how much? 4. And the time period we had taken was 1 year, for example. So there was 4% growth at in 1 year rate. So the growth or the birth rate was 4 individuals per year, not percentage exactly, 4 individuals per year was the birth rate for the lotus family. Now we see that what is the death rate. So fruit flies का very example is taken in the NCERT book. So fruit flies हो सकता है that during the experiment there were say 100 fruit flies एक टाइम टी पे थे, and after some time these fruit flies say within a week some fruit flies died, and now only 60 fruit flies are left after time t plus 1. So is condition में what you have understood that whatever is the change, so here we are calculating about the death rate. So death rate कितना हुआ? The change is going to be of 40. The 40 fruit flies has been died. In what? It has been died the 40 individuals in the time frame we have considered, that is going to be per week. So the death rate is going to be of 40 individuals per week for the case of fruit flies. So similarly you can calculate birth rates and the death rate by the change in individuals upon the given time period. So population is going to have both, that is birth and death rates, but an individual, if you are considering only a single man or if you are considering a single plant, then it is going to have only birth or only death. उसकी सिर्फ birth हो सकती है या death हो सकती है. You are not going to calculate their birth or death rates. So when rates is going to come, it is a population attribute. When only birth or death is considered, it is given for a individual. So second we see about sex ratio. So sex ratio may be individual can be described as a male or a female, that is the gender or that is the sex of a single individual. But when population is considered, you are going to say the sex ratio, that is the population can have both. The population can have both males and as well as females. So both can be there in the population, but an individual can be a male or a female. So for example, if a population is going to have 1000 individuals, we have selected 1000 individuals in our population study. This means 600 are going to be females, whereas rest of them are going to be males. So females कितने होगा? Females are 600, whereas males are going to be 400 when the total population has been considered as 1000. So in this, what is going to be the ratio? So ratio is always considered for females versus males. So the ratio is going to be for 60 to 40. So this is going to be the ratio. So ratio किस चीज़ का है? Ratio is going to be always considered for a population, not for a single individual. So again, by this you can understand that how this is a population attribute. So here also you can see that in many states, here in the newspaper article you can see that these are going to be various sex ratios wherein it is calculated that how many females are going to be per male. So the number of females, these numbers that you are going to see, what are these numbers? These are number of females per 100 per 1000 males in that particular area. So number of females in Kerala are going to be much more higher. So 47 ज़्यादा है per male. So likewise you are going to see, and depending upon the sex ratio, balance should be maintained, and that balance is going to help to build up a good country. So that is the reason sex ratio is also very important to study in the democracy. Now we are going to see about the third population attribute, that is about age of population. So population age को study करने के लिए you need to have the study of census which is done for every 5 years, and for every 5 years when counting of the population has been done, you can get the values about their ages and the age pyramid can be formed. An age pyramid is nothing but going to be a graphical representation which is going to show you the different proportions of the age of the population. So population ages ko you can divide it as pre-reproductive. The reproductive phase generally considered from 30 to 45 years, and above that all will be the post-reproductive age group. So there are going to be three kinds of age pyramids that can be understood based on how are the proportions of pre-reproductive, reproductive and post-reproductive. So the first graph या first pyramid जो आपको दिखता है that is going to be a type of expanding pyramid. So expanding pyramid जो होता है, here you are going to understand that the pre-reproductive population is going to be very large. So this pre-reproductive population being large shows you that the expanding type of pyramid has a base which is broad. So once the base is broad, what is going to happen? It indicates that there is pre-reproductive people more. Pre-reproductive है यानी the population of that country is young and growing. Once it is young and growing, you can also understand that the entire population after some period of time is going to increase, and once the population is going to increase, you are going to need more and more resources. वो हो सकता है, it might be food resources, it might be energy resources, and you are also going to need more and more opportunity. And once you need more and more opportunity, what are you going to need? You are going to develop your government accordingly so that this upgrowing population can have all the resources and opportunities. So this kind of expanding pyramids जो होते हैं, it is going to have a shape of a triangle. So it is expanding and has a shape of triangle, so you can understand it as likewise as well. So इसका shape क्या है? It is a triangular shape of you know graph or a pyramid, and such triangular shape is seen for the case of India. So India is a young country because it has more and more pre-reproductive population. That means it is young and growing. Second phase जो आता है, that is a stable pyramid or a stable graph. So stable जो होता है, wherein you will see that the population of pre-reproductive and reproductive is almost same, and because of that what is been understand, that is it is stabilized growth. That is, if there is no increase, neither there is decrease in population, there is no changes that is going to occur in some period of time. That means you can also say that there the growth rate is going to be zero. सो आगे जाके आगे के टाइम में ना ही पॉपुलेशन इंक्रीज होगी ना ही पॉपुलेशन डिक्रीज होगी. सो दैट इज गोइंग टू बी अ ग्राफ ऑफ स्टेबल पॉपुलेशन. सो स्टेबल पॉपुलेशन को यू कैन ऑल्सो कॉल इट एज अ ग्राफ ऑफ बेल शेप. So this is what it is, a bell shape. So this bell shape graph is going to be considering for the stable population, right? Bell shaped graph for a stable population. और ऐसे stable population का graph का जो country है, you can take an example of European countries which is going to show the age pyramid as a bell shape because their population has been stabilized. The next type of graph आता है, that is going to be a declining graph. So this declining one is going to have a negative growth. Negative growth है यानी उनकी population जो है it is going to decrease after few years because their post reproductive is going to be less. उनका post reproductive कम है, उनका pre reproductive कम है, only their reproductive population is more. Because of that there is a negative growth and it is going to show a shape of pyramid as a urn shape. So this urn shape is going to be considering for the declining population. So questions कैसे आएंगे? Questions will be that what sort of pyramid is going to have a urn shaped. So urn shaped किसके लिए होता है? It is going to be for a declining population. An example can be given for Japan, or it can be given for China. So China and Japan both are going to have their you know uh, the adult people, that is post reproductive people, at a larger population, and the pre reproductive also at a lower age. So once the reproductive people have been gone through that phase of life, तो आगे जाके it is going to suddenly show a negative growth, और वो population suddenly decrease हो जाएगी. So that is a declining population. So because of that, you can understand that how the country is going to transform, whether the population is going to expand as in the case of India, or it is going to be stabilized, or it is going to decline. So based on that, many policies can be made by the government so that the upcoming changes can be handled very easily. The fourth population attribute is going to be population density, wherein we study about the total number. So first of all, density maintain करनी है. So you need to count how many people or how many individuals are going to be present. So the first method that you can do is counting the total number. So total number count करने के लिए you need the population to be countable. हो सकता है that you go and try to count क्लेमाइडोमोनास इन पॉन्ड. क्लेमाइडोमोनास इतने छोटे छोटे माइक्रोस्कोपिक है that it can go into millions of numbers, and it will be difficult for you to count in total numbers, whereas you can count the individuals which are having lower population, like in the case of Siberian cranes. So Siberian cranes जो migrate होके आते हैं, हो सकता है कि वो 2 आए, 5 आए, 6 आए, तो you can count those. So that is the drawback of the counting of total number. So what can you do instead of counting the entire number? You can go for a second method that is called as biomass cover. So biomass cover yani exactly how much of the population can it be grown in that particular area. So once you consider for the case of Parthenium grass, so Parthenium grass जो होगा in the area of a limited area, हो सकता है कि वहाँ पे 200 Parthenium plants grow हो जाए, but in that area only a single banyan tree will grow. So in that condition, once you can understand about the biomass cover, so वहाँ पे what will you say, that the population density of banyan tree is going to be low than that of Parthenium, because once the limited area is being given, एक एरिया में एक banyan ट्री है या एक एरिया में 200 है, तो who is going to be more in population? Population is more for the case of Parthenium, right? Population is more for the case of Parthenium. But what is the biomass? Biomass, if you consider, the Parthenium is not going to have a lot of biomass. So this biomass will be less, but in the case of banyan tree, maybe the population is going to be low, but the biomass that it is occupying in that particular area is going to be very high. But as we are studying about the population density में the banyan tree is going to lose over the population density of Parthenium grass. So because of all such different changes, now we came up to the third idea, that is about relative densities. So relative densities are going to be, the case wherein it is not possible to count the total number of things. So हो सकता है कि एक पेट्री डिश में कितने बैक्टीरिया है, it is not possible to count, या it is not possible to go and count the number of fishes that is being there in the pond or in the sea. So in such cases you are going to consider the relative densities. So हो सकता है कि that a person goes and catches some fishes, और कितने fishes trap में आए हैं. Based on that, it will be considered the total density of fishes in that particular aquatic body. So हो सकता है कि एक जगह पे आप गए, आपको एक ट्रैप में in the given period of time you got 7 fishes. दूसरे वहाँ पे गए, you got 70 fishes. So the lake A which was having only 7 fishes and the lake B which got 70 fishes, So who is going to have more relative density? More relative density will be the case in the pond B, which had 70 fishes caught. क्योंकि उतने टाइम में जिनका पॉपुलेशन ज़्यादा होगा उन्हीं के ट्रैप ज़्यादा आएंगे. So based on that you have a formula that is total number of individuals of one species divided by total number of all species. So here you have one species divided by all species into 100 will give you the relative density. Fourth method आता है of indirect counting. Sometimes it is not possible for you to go and actually count the organisms, or by seeing the organisms it will not be possible for you to count them. So you will consider the population size in an indirect manner by using some of the प्रॉपर्टीज. सो टाइगर सेंसस जो होता है कि कितना पॉपुलेशन टाइगर का है इन दैट पर्टिकुलर वाइल्ड लाइफ सेंचुरी और इन द केस ऑफ वाइल्ड जंगल्स. So you are going to use the pug marks. What are pug marks? Pug marks are going to be the footprints. So these footprints will be used, and these footprints are going to be recorded everywhere so that they are going to understand कि जो हमने count किया है it is not repeated again, so that calculation mistake should not be occurring. So each pug mark, the unique pug mark, is going to be kept in the records, and you can see the left foot, right foot, the front and the back, males and females are going to have different pug marks. So based on that they can also understand and indirectly count the population by the help of pug marks and fecal pellets. So this is a very important question जो पूछा गया था, that how can you understand the tiger senses. तो टाइगर सेंसेस को पता करने के लिए you need to undergo pug mark and fecal pellets calculation. Now we see about the second thing of our population, that is population growth. पहले हमने देखा population attributes, now we see about the population growth. Now how is a growth being understood? That whenever a size of population of any species, it might be for the case of birds, it might be case for animals, or it might be the case for humans, there is no such static parameter which is not going to change. It is always going to change depend upon the various factors. So density of a population आप कैसे पता करोगे? It will be only calculated for a given period of time, because every time there is going to be changes that keeps on occurring, and there is no such fixed density of a population. And why it is going to change? Because it is going to undergo four processes, that is going to be natality, second that is mortality, third that is immigration, and fourth that is immigration. So यहाँ पे I M है, यहाँ पे सिर्फ E है, so it needs to be remembered. So one more thing that I would like to tell to you, that is the natality and immigration. These two are going to be contributing in increase in population. What are they going to do? These are going to contribute to increase population, because what is natality, what is immigration, we are going to understand in few minutes. But here you need to remember, natality, immigration increases population, whereas mortality and immigration are going to decrease the population. So because of that, the changes in the density of population is going to occur. Now we see about what is natality. Natality is going to refer to the number of births during a given period of time. Very important, it is a given period of time, because if you are considering about natality in given period of 1 year, but mortality if you are considering it for 10 years, so that given period is not same. So both calculations should be done in the same time frame. So number of birds in the given period of time, which is going to add to the initial density, it is an additive agent. And mortality is going to be the number of deaths, which is going to be decreasing the population density. Immigration is going to where the number of individuals from the same species are going to come into an habitat from elsewhere, and once they are coming from elsewhere, during that time period they will be considered in that habitat, and these will be increasing the population density of that region. Immigration है wherein the individuals have been left that habitat for a time period, and that is going to decrease the population density. So here you need to remember the immigration starting with E is related to exit. That means the individuals are going to move out of that habitat, whereas starting with I, immigration, that means inside. So these are going to come inside, or these are going to come in that population, adding to the population density. So that makes us to understand that how the density of population determined by the n. So n is nothing but density of population and some time period t. And once it is expressed for a time period, let's say 1 साल बाद 2 साल बाद, after 10 years, whatever time frame that is represented by t plus 1. So you can understand it as T is going to be the past population density, and T plus 1 is going to be the new density population. So T plus 1, the new population density, is going to be calculated with the help of previous density population plus the changes that have occurred. So changes may, what are we going to consider? The births and the immigrations, which is going to contribute to increase, and the deaths and the immigration that are contributing to decrease the things. So once you are going to say that the increase and decrease, once they are subtracted and be added to the previous population, that is going to give you the new density of populations. So here you can have two conditions. Once if you are having that B plus I is going to be more than the case of deaths and immigration, then in that case what is going to happen? Once the birth and immigration are more, the population is going to increase. So there will be increase in density, and once the case is opposite, यानी जहाँ पे you are going to have the births and the immigration lower than the case of deaths and immigration, you are going to have the population density that is going to decrease. So this is very important to understand that how the births, the death rates are going to be affecting the population density. So this is also a very important NCRT graph that can be asked you to fill up. So जो आएगा that is going to be increasing once is leaving the population or it is being death, तो वहाँ पे population density को decrease करने की कोशिश करेगा. So the vital index for population is going to be the birth rates divided by the death rates into 100. So for that reason, the birth and the deaths are very important factors which are going to influence the population density. So for instance, एक newly colonized कंट्री है, एक बहुत नया सा आइलैंड है, ये नया सा न्यू आइलैंड पे देर इज़ नो वन यूज टू लिव एट दैट एरिया, बट दिस न्यूली कॉलोनाइज्ड एरिया पे अगर कोई इमिग्रेट करके नया इंसान आके यहाँ पे रहने की कोशिश करेगा, दैट इज़ इमिग्रेशन. So that immigration is also going to significantly be helping in the population growth. So birth and death influencing for the population density, whereas immigration is going to be significantly contributing in population growth. Now coming to the next topic about growth models, wherein we are going to see about the two growth models, first one being the exponential growth और second होगा about logistic growth. So exponential growth जो होता है, it is going to be also called as geometric fashion of growth, and this is going to be when the organism is going to receive the resources, that might be food, that might be space, the water, or whatever the organism needs, that is going to be at an unlimited scale. So it is very important to understand that resources जो होते हैं, these are always limited in the real world. जैसे कभी हुआ है that whatever amount of water you needed, whatever amount of energy you needed, you always get it, and your fossil fuels, your petrol in the car, your food in the plate never gets finished. So ऐसे तो होता नहीं है. So that means your resources are never been unlimited. It is only a theoretical area once you consider that the resources are unlimited. So Darwin had been understood that once you consider that the resources are going to be unlimited, each species is going to have a ability to grow at its complete potential. एंड दिस इन्नेट पोटेंशियल दैट मीन्स द इनबॉर्न पोटेंशियल, उसको जितना अंदर की फुल ताकत से वो ग्रो करने की कोशिश करेगा, एंड बिकॉज ऑफ दैट इट नीड्स अनलिमिटेड सप्लाईज, बट अनलिमिटेड सप्लाईज तो होते नहीं है इन रियल वर्ल्ड. So what is going to happen? There is going to be some different kind of growth which is going to be seen in real world. So exponential growth जो होती है, it is going to be a theoretical, or you can say it is going to be a ideal kind of growth model. सो इन अनलिमिटेड ग्रोथ दिखाने वाला कि ये कभी पॉपुलेशन रुकेगी नहीं, इट इज़ ऑलवेज गोइंग टू ग्रो अनलिमिटेड इन साइज, so that is not possible in real case. Somewhere or the other it needs to be stopped by the nature. Otherwise अभी तक तो bacteria would have covered all the entire world. Even humans could have gone up till the एरियाज जहाँ पे वो हर जगह पे पॉपुलेशन फैला के रखते हैं. सो इट इज़ नॉट द केस. देर इज़ गोइंग टू बी अ सर्टन लिमिट अप टिल विच द पॉपुलेशन इज गोइंग टू ग्रो. So that intrinsic rate by which the nature is allowing the organisms to grow will be called as biotic potential, which is represented by a small letter r. So this biotic potential is going to be a very important factor because it is going to assess that environmental factors, that is might be biotic or abiotic, how it is going to impact on the population growth. So for example, if you see that R value is more, that means the population growth is going to be much more. For example, the R that is in the case of tropical rainforest. So tropical rainforest में R value ज़्यादा होगी because there the resources are much more in fertile conditions. So वहाँ पे tropical rainforest में R की value ज़्यादा होगी. But if you consider for the case of R that is lower, there the growth rate is going to be much lower, and that can be seen in the case of deserts. So deserts के case में the population growth is going to be much more slower than in the case of tropical rainforests. So here we also see that what can be understood by the certain graph. So population का जो data आता है उस हिसाब से how can you understand the graphical representation that we saw. So whatever is the increase or the decrease of the population, that is represented by n naught, and that will be considered for a time t. So you note it down it as whenever there is some increase or decrease, that is the change in population at some period of time is going to give you the rate of change. So that rate of change will be equal to the number of births and the deaths that occur, which is equal to r, and this r is going to be written as multiplied with the total population that it previously had. So mentioning all these things, you can now get to know that whatever is the rate of change, that is might be increasing or decreasing, will be given by this formula. So this formula, that is dn by dt is equal to b minus d into n. So what is this going to stand for? The b is going to stand for per capita birth rates, which is going to be increasing. This D is going to be for per capita death rates, which is going to be decreasing. And what is R? R is going to be the intrinsic rate. What is R? It is the intrinsic rate which will be calculated by the difference between the births and the deaths. So based on that, you can also have an integral formula that is going to be explaining the exponential growth. So exponential growth है, यहाँ पे logarithms use होंगे. So based on the logarithms, the formula will be expressed in the form of nt is going to be having n naught. So nt is a population after time t, and the n naught is going to be the population at t equal to 0. So this will be understood by once you study physics. You know that car at rest at time t, and after some time what is going to be the change that occurs. So based on that, you have this equation of population at time 0 and after some time t. So since it is exponential growth, वहाँ पे logarithms use होंगे. So e is going to be a logarithmic base, and this base is going to have a value of 2.71828. So the value of E is going to be that, and based on that this graph has been formulated, which is going to go, and it seems that it will be always continue, but now you know that this type of graph is going to need under unlimited resources, and this unlimited resources is going to be limited for a very short period of time, because you know resources are always limited, that is in the real world. but आप ऐसे create कर सकते हो that for a very short period of time you can identify the graph which is going to show you exponential growth. So in this equation, when you add up that dn by dt is giving you this kind of equation, you are resulting in a graph that is showing you a J shape. So this graph of exponential growth is going to show a J shaped curve, and once there is going to be environmental resistance, this J shape will be starting to decline, and this decline in the J shape population is going to be triggering to decrease the population. So हमेशा के लिए ये grow होते नहीं रहेगा. After some period of time in real life there will be a decline in the J-shaped population that can be seen in the case of algal blooms. It can also be seen in the insect population. So algal blooms जो होते हैं during the monsoon season, monsoon के time पे there is all over the pond water is available in lot of quantity. So monsoon के time पे the population is going to increase, but during the dry summer season the population will decrease, because at that period of time there will be no suitable conditions for the algae to grow. So that J-shaped population can be seen, the exponential growth can be seen during the monsoons, where the relative availability of resources is unlimited, whereas in summers there will be competition for the resources, and that makes us to start our new growth model, which is logistic growth model. So logistic growth model जो होता है, it is much more of a practical growth model, because it is going to be, you can relate it to the real world. ऐसा growth models दिख सकता है, and this is going to be the case wherein the resources are limiting in nature, and once at a given particular habitat only a maximum number of population can be supported, और उसके बाद growth is no more possible. That for example if you consider कि एक particular land पे the as per the square feet only say 100 people can live. आफ्टर 100 पीपल अगर उसको बहुत ज़्यादा नज़दीक नज़दीक ला के भी लोगों को खड़ा किया जाए, दिस 100 पीपल कैन नॉट इंक्रीज अप टू 101 एज वेल. So that is the total entire population that is going to be placed at that area, and that maximum limit यहाँ पे क्या है, 100 is going to be the max limit that that particular land can hold. So 101 तक नहीं जा पाएगा, सिर्फ 100 तक ही है, that is its max limit that it can hold, and that max limit is nothing but called as carrying capacity. What is it being called as? It is called as carrying capacity, and it is denoted by the letter capital K. So whatever is the maximum limit of that nature that it is going to hold the population, that is carrying capacity, and after that limit it is not going to be possible for the species to show more and more growth. So for that reason, when the resources are limited and the carrying capacity is limited, there needs to be fittest individual which is going to be surviving, and that will survive with reproduction to continue its species. So for that reason nature के पास limited resources होने की वजह से the fittest individual is going to survive and reproduce. So how is this fittest individual being understood? It is going to be understood by the environmental factors. जैसे environmental factors हो सकते हैं बहुत ज़्यादा गर्मी आ जाना, बहुत ज़्यादा बारिश आ जाना, या different kinds of food scarcity, water scarcity. All such different kinds of environmental factors can limit the population size, and that will be called as environmental resistance, which is going to affect the different kinds of population, and that can be denoted by K minus N by K. So that is going to be about the logistic growth, which is a much more of a practical or a real type of growth model. सो यहाँ पे लॉजिस्टिक ग्रोथ जो होगा इट इज़ गोइंग टू शो 4 phases. द फर्स्ट phase being a lag phase followed by the acceleration of the phase, then the third is deceleration and finally the asymptote phase. So lag phase जो होता है, lag phase it's very important to understand that lag phase जो होगा it is going to be somewhat like this. This is a growth of lag phase, whereas if you compare it, this is going to be your accelerating phase. So lag में एक depression आएगा, एक curve आएगा, whereas this is going to be a very sharp slope. So that needs to be understand between the lag and the accelerated phase. So lag phase सबसे पहले आएगा, then the lag phase is going to continue. So the first one being the lag phase, second होगा आपका accelerating phase, the second phase, then there is going to be deceleration. Then the deceleration, that means there the population is going to start to decline, and finally there is going to be stopping of the population and it will reach the asymptote phase जहाँ पे no more changes has been seen. So finally ये जो curve होगा, that curve is going to turn into a sigmoid shaped curve. वो कैसे होगा? It is going to be a sigmoid shaped curve for the logistic growth. So this growth curve had been studied by a scientist that was been otherwise called as the Wellness-Pearl logistic growth, and now it has been described by an equation that is mentioned over here. So this equation may the n is going to stand for the population density at the time t, r is the intrinsic rate, and the K is the carrying capacity. So here you can see in the photograph that the carrying capacity K is going to limit. The maximum limit is the carrying capacity. So the red line is going to stop the growth of populations over here. उसके बाद the growth is not seen. So the curve, that is the sigmoid curve, is going to stop at the carrying capacity. But if you consider the two growths at a single place, so if you try to draw the logistic growth and the exponential growth at the same place, तो यहाँ पे आएगी आपकी population size, यहाँ पे आएगा time, and if you place both the curves at a single place, so यहाँ पे आपका आ गया J shaped curve which is for exponential growth, and if you place your second curve, that is your logistic curve, so this is going to be your logistic curve, a more realistic curve, और इनके यहाँ पे you will find the carrying capacity. So this red line is the carrying capacity. Carrying capacity के ऊपर जब ग्रोथ होती है that is your exponential growth, and carrying capacity के आगे your logistic growth is never going to increase because that is the maximum limit that the nature can hold. So that was a little comparison that you can do for exponential and the logistic growth curves. So because of the resources that are needed for the growth of organisms which are going to be finite and they will be becoming limiting, for that reason the logistic growth will be considered as a more realistic growth curve. So that was about the two important growth curves, that is logistic growth curve and the exponential growth curve. So many more question types can be arising from this equation. So ये equation के ऊपर questions बहुत important पूछे जाते हैं, that what sort of questions can be asked, we will discuss it over here. So I would like to write them down so that you can note it down in your books or somewhere, that will help you to revise it once again later on. So questions ऐसे पूछे जाते हैं that the growth rate, that is R. Okay, what is growth rate? Growth rate is represented by R. So when growth rate is going to become 0, when is the growth rate becoming 0? The growth rate will become 0 when the n by k is going to be equal to 1. So this is the question number 1 that has been asked, that growth rate once becomes 0, what is going to be equal to unity? So it is going to be n by k. Second question पूछा जाता है, that is going to be when there is going to be asymptote growth. Okay, when it is going to be a asymptote growth, when it is a linear growth. So this kind of asymptote will be obtained when k is going to be equal to n. So k when be equal to n, what it means, that once you add this value in the formula of logistic growth, it will give you the answers as dn by dt will be equal to Rn. So Rn, this will be, understanding once you study physics, you know that this kind of equation gives you what sort of growth curve. It is going to give you the growth curve that is a linear growth curve. So this asymptote is going to be like this. It will be formed when the k is equal to n. So these are the two questions that has been asked previously many a times, and that will be very easier for you now once you see the question and we have understood it over here as well. So as we saw in the logistic growth कि population को हमेशा survive करने के लिए और to show some reproductive fitness, the population needs to have some ability to evolve so that they can show the fitness that is called as Darwin's fitness. So these organisms or these populations which have that Darwin fitness are going to have high R value, and under that circumstances who organisms evolve to be much more efficient toward reproductive strategies, they will have some characteristics. So first of all, they will be understood by the breeding habit. So कुछ organisms ऐसे होते हैं that these will breed only once in their lifetime. For example, Pacific salmon fish, or you can also consider the example of bamboo. Whereas some other organisms, they might be breeding for many times, and once they breed for many times of their life, उनका जो strategy है for building up population, that will be breeding many a times in the case of birds and mammals. So that is about breeding habit, whether to breed once in life or to breed many times in the lifetime. So second होता है that the number and the size of offsprings. So if the number of offsprings, if the organism decides to have the number of offsprings as large and size of organisms to be small, यानी एक साथ बहुत सारे आएंगे but these will be of smaller sizes, right? 7 to 8, but at a very large number of population. So in such cases you have the example of oysters or the pelagic fishes. So pelagic is the place जहाँ पे अंडरग्राउंड सी में यानी सी के एकदम बेंथिक रीजन्स पे जो फिशेस होते हैं which grow in they move in झुंड, इसे बहुत ज़्यादा झुंड में घूमते हैं, those are the fishes which will be reproducing in smaller sized offsprings but at a very large population growth. So that is the case of oysters. Second एक type होता है जहाँ पे एक population में बहुत बड़े बड़े individuals पैदा होंगे, but these will be small number of offsprings formed, but they will be larger in size. So such will be the case of birds and mammals, wherein the offsprings born are lesser in number but bigger in size. So that is the two differences that occurs between the organisms. That is first the breeding habit, whether to under a time period of 1 year, whether to breed only once or to breed more than once. और second होता है how is the population size and number. So based on the different types of individuals, they are categorized as R selected or K selected species. So R selected or K selected में क्या फ़र्क है? These differences has been given down in the table. So R selected जो होते हैं, these are going to be having the environment which is unstable. For that reason, they will be having smaller sized organisms, and smaller sized organisms because the energy to make individuals will be low, and the offsprings they will be produced in many more number, and the individual will be reproducing only once. There is shorter life expectancy and उनकी life span कम होगा, and they will be following the third type of survival or the curve. So survivorship curve has been demonstrated over here, and you can also understand the K selected species by the graph. So graph में K selected species जो red color से बताया है, that is going to show you the graph that exceeds the carrying capacity at many times. When it is expanding over the carrying capacity, these are also going to decline at a very faster rate once it goes to the peak. एक टाइम पे पीक आएगा जहाँ पे बहुत सारे ऑफस्प्रिंग्स पैदा होंगे, बट लेटर ऑन द डिप इन द कर्व हैज़ बीन ऑब्जर्व्ड, and that is going to be a sharp decline. So that is about R selected species. K selected species, which has been demonstrated by the blue curve in the growth curve, they will be having the stable environment, large size organisms, energy required for individual to be produced is very high. The lesser number of ऑफस्प्रिंग्स will be produced, वहाँ पे बहुत बार reproduction होगा, life expectancy will be much more, and following of one or second type of the survivorship curve. So in that the case selected species having their growth curve वो carrying capacity के almost आसपास ही रहेंगे, they won't exceed at a very larger rate or they won't tip their curve at a very sharp rate. वो बस कभी कभी ऊपर जाएंगे and they will slowly come down, but they will be always near to the carrying capacity. So that was a little thing that had been asked in previous year questions. So it was very important for you to understand about the R selected and the K selected species. So that was all for today's video. I hope you understood each and everything on this video. If you have some doubts, you can surely post it down in the comment section. You can also like, share and subscribe to our amazing channel if you liked this video. And if you like this, तो आप और वीडियोस के लिए भी वेट कर सकते हो. We will be coming soon. And with this, I would like to end it over here by saying keep smiling, keep studying hard till we meet next time. Until then, bye bye everyone. Thank you.